Hi, I'm Janet Pritchett. I'm running for Fisher City Clerk.
And I'm Jocelyn Vare. I serve you now on the Fisher City Council. I'm an at-large member and I'm running for re-election this November.
And we're here today to talk a little bit about the Hamilton East Public Library. So the Hamilton East Public Library spans both Noblesville and Fishers and has a location in each city. The library board serves both locations. It is comprised of 7 board members. They are appointed,
not elected.
That's important to know. 2 are appointed by the Hamilton County Commissioners. 2 are appointed by the Hamilton County Council. 2 are appointed by the Noblesville School Board, and 1 is appointed by the Hamilton Southeastern School Board President. And Jocelyn and I, quite frankly, have just been inundated
with all these questions and concerns over the last week. And there were such a series of events, just a flurry of activity with the library board, and of course the involvement of Hoosier author, young adult author, John Green. And we'll get into all that, but what we can do first, I think, as a service to all of you, is to just back up a few steps. And Janet and I were both very involved back in February of last year. That's when I think you and I both started to get involved with the Fishers, the Hamilton East Public Library, of which, again, we have 1 location here in Fishers, and really having our voice heard as a representative of citizens that had concerns back then.
So back then in February, I heard some rumblings of some citizens that were concerned about a couple books that were on the shelves in the teen section of the library. And so just the year prior, I was a school board president and had appointed a member to the board who at that point was still serving on the library board. So I also wanted to go and support and see kind of how the library board worked, and spoke in favor of keeping the books where they're intended for those folks. So I do know that the director, Edra Waterman, has a degree in library science. So I urged the citizens and the board to support her and her decision on where to shelve the books.
And I spoke out that day as well. Again, just trying to represent citizens, the citizens' voices, not only that I felt aligned with, but most importantly that I heard out in the community. And that was, my remarks were centered on, frankly, the Hamilton East Public Library's new tagline, which was "Ideas Live Here." And I felt very strongly, and I tried to express this with full support for Director Waterman and her expertise, that if ideas were going to live at the library, they had to live in a place that was accessible for all, and frankly, all ideas, knowing that not everyone agrees. And that's really one of the things I love best about our community. We have a diverse community with people come in from all sorts of areas of the country to come to live to Fishers, bringing with them their experiences and viewpoints, and our public library serves that. So anyway, backing up the train a little bit, back to February of last year, this actually was a very healthy meeting with lots of public comment and a lot of, I would say, just respect all around. It wasn't contentious. It was productive and helpful. What you say?
Yeah, and I would say also that the library board seemed very adamant about their job, which is oversight. Very much so. Several board members discussed that they felt like it was, their job, not their job to
put a book here or there, right?
They don't pick where the collections live. They were, of course, listening to what everybody was saying, but that wasn't their purview. So that was something that I left feeling confident with, that the board was very firmly in their lane.
And I felt like the outcome, and I don't think everything got resolved at that meeting, but it started the conversation, and it felt to me like compromises. I felt like citizens were heard, and I felt like there was just this environment of compromise. And furthermore, I would say from my perspective, kind of a feeling of this is sacred, meaning where we put books is tender, and making sure accessibility was the number one concern. So
and I
it
think
was taken very seriously.
I agree, and I think something that also gets lost in some of this conversation is the schematics between banned and censorship. And so, we knew even then that books were not getting banned. They're not banned. You can find them in the library. However, censorship does happen when you move books from where they're intended to be. So I remember I have fond memories of being a teen browsing the library just to find. I know I was always chastised, don't judge a book by its cover. However,
you look at the cover and you're intrigued.
You're intrigued. You want to pick something up, and some of these titles recently, they're being moved into the adult section where. I mean, quite frankly, I wouldn't let my teen just browse there. I mean, maybe to find something intentionally, but
the adult section has adult content, and the teen section is supposed to be a bridge between the kids section and the adult section. So,
Oh, go ahead. I don't think this is really about books.
No.
I don't.
I think where we are today,
right,
is not about books. So just where we left off in February seemed to be a good path. And then, of course, new members of the library board took office in January. And for me, that's where things started to change very, very quickly. Fast forward where we are today. I think Janet and I both want to share with citizens of Fishers that there's more here than what it appears, meaning I believe if we're having this conversation about what book goes where and what paragraph is inappropriate and not, we are off the rails. Like, we're never going to win that because, as I said, we're a diverse community. People look at things differently.
It's so far in the weeds for something that is not.
We're not going to be able to manage this.
We would never agree on that.
No, but we can agree on this. What is appropriate for my child is up to me. What's appropriate for your child is up to you. And if we disagree on that, I shouldn't get to tell your child or put an obstacle in the path of your child to find a book. And as a parent, that's you do what you do best and parent your child, and I will do the same for me. And we have to have that respect and honor that for all of our residents who patronize the Hamilton East Public Library.
Yes. So how did we get here?
How did we get here? From my perspective, I see new political forces in play now that frankly weren't there before. So just the overall environment, I think, is more political. We now have Moms for Liberty. Frankly, I've been calling them Moms for Purity. Fishers One is now a group that has a lot of political volume, we'll say. In addition to that, it's important to note we have two new members on the Hamilton East Public Library Board who are politicians. They are actively running for office. I'm a politician. I know what that means. That means it is tricky for someone like that in an environment that is already politically charged. We know nationally public library boards and some books have become a tool for political ambition. That is a very dangerous stew that has been mixed up in Fishers, that has been served up at our public library board. It's concerning, but that's the reality of it.
Yeah. And I'm so proud of all the people in our community who have written letters and have called,
mobilized.
Yes, for sure.
Amazing.
Come together. It's been very inspiring, but also a little concerning in the way that it really took a national best-selling author to really shed some light on our community. And yes, I'm talking about John Green, who did, speak up and say, hey, wait a minute, why is this being moved? And then a series of events happening after that, such as the library board president sort of backpedaling and saying, well, that's not really, it was a mistake, which it isn't, because it's
the policy that was approved.
Again, another policy that is to sort of intended to shock and move all these books, and it's ridiculous. And of course it's ridiculous, but they did it. And unfortunately, it's not our citizens' voices that were heard or made. The folks on the board and the folks who appointed these board members, that didn't move them. They didn't change this or say, let's think about this again, or let's have some discussion about this. That is not what changed this. It was a national, international light shed on our community that caused local politicians, and to Jocelyn's point, there should be nothing political about this.
But it took someone with notoriety to make this policy untenable. And that's not how government should have worked.
No.
It is sometimes what does happen is elected or appointed officials overstep, they overreach. How good government works is the checks and balances there are citizens. They speak into it, and what's supposed to happen in good government is then that's supposed to be heard and adjustments should be made. Because if there's a misalignment between a policy and the community, that needs to be corrected. And that was not attempted to be corrected until, thank goodness, John Green's voice entered the conversation.
And honestly, where it stands right now, I'm still unsure as if this policy is even being revised. The last we heard was that the book was being moved. The one book was being moved back to the young adult section, but the policy, as far as I know, it still stands.
Yes, and it's very concerning about what happens from here because it's so muddy. But what seems clear is that the policy is faulty, and in my opinion, the motivation behind the policy does not reflect our community. So there's compromise that can happen here. I would advocate for the previous policy which was in place, which really allowed citizens to speak to very specific books. The fact that 1,300 books have been moved from the teen section for inappropriate content into the adult section not only is nonsense, but that should be a red flag. At 25% of the review completed, 1,300 books being inappropriate, something is out of whack here and it needs to be adjusted. So
sure.
We hope citizens continue to speak out. I know I will.
And I will too.
I know you will. And we'll work on this together. But I will conclude for me with this. This should not be the most important issue in our community today. We have a lot of really important issues that we should be working on as a community. And hopefully we will tackle some of those as our series moves forward. But for today, having books in the library shelved appropriately for good access to all is a top priority. And because citizens' voices must be heard. This is your public library. It does not belong to politicians. It does not belong to the board. It belongs to you, Fishers residents.
So keep speaking, because
keep working.
Because we love Fishers.
We love Fishers. Thanks all.